In this lesson, you will learn about major scales. As you watch the lesson, I would encourage you to pause the video to take notes, rewind to listen to material that may not have been clear at first, or fast forward through topics that you are comfortable with. After you've watched the videos, you can work through the practice exercises on Canvas. If you have any questions, please post them to the discussion board. Feel free to answer your classmates' questions on the discussion board, and the TAs and I will check in periodically. You must take the short quiz before coming to class. You're welcome to take it as many times as you'd like and to use whatever materials you have, but you must score 100% in order for it to count. Before you start this lesson, you must be comfortable with reading pitches in treble, bass, alto, and tenor clefs, whole steps and half steps, both diatonic and chromatic, and accidentals and their functions. If these topics are still uncomfortable for you, go back and review lessons 1.1 and 1.2, and once you can do them with ease, then begin this lesson. By the end of this lesson, you should be able to recall the pattern of whole and half steps that comprises a major scale. You should be able to identify scale degrees by number, solfege, and name, and you should be able to spell major scales starting on any pitch. A major scale is a collection of 7 different pitches arranged in a particular order within an octave. Each note name occurs once and only once. They appear in alphabetical order, and none is omitted. A scale can also be defined as a pattern of whole steps and half steps. The pattern of steps that defines the major scale is whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. It is important to note that the half step is always a diatonic half step, never a chromatic half step, because that would violate the once and only once rule. Here is the C major scale. I have indicated each pitch on the keyboard and on the staff. Notice that the scale starts and ends with C, and that the half steps correspond to the half steps on the keyboard. There are no accidentals in this particular scale. We have 3 different ways of naming the individual scale degrees, and you are responsible for memorizing all of them. For instance, scale degree 1 is also Do in solfege, and we call it the tonic. Scale degree 2 is Re in solfege, and we call it the supertonic. At any given time, I might say, what's Mi in an E major scale, or tell me the dominant in a C major scale, or what's scale degree 7 in F major, and you should be able to identify any of those as I ask. The solfege in particular is going to carry over into your Music 113 classes, so it's very, very important that you know all of this. We can build a major scale starting on any pitch. Let's try building one in which A is scale degree 1, or the tonic. The first thing I'm going to do is write all of the pitches in order from A to A, ascending within an octave. Scales can, of course, descend as well. Next, I'm going to identify the pattern of whole steps and half steps that the notes create. I can see that there are a couple of places where the pattern I have here does not align with the pattern that I know for a major scale, so I'm going to have to make some changes using accidentals. To create the whole step above scale degree 2, B, I need to raise the C to a C sharp. Doing so has the added benefit of solving the problem between scale degrees 3 and 4. I'm going to do the same thing with the submediant, scale degree 6, and raise it from F to F sharp. And last but not least, I'm going to raise the G to G sharp to fix the last pair of intervals. This is kind of the long way to build scales. You can simply start with any given pitch and write a whole step above it, a whole step above that, a half step above that, and so on. You're welcome to use whatever method works best for you. However, be advised that speed is ultimately of the essence here. This is the kind of thing that would be really good to drill, spend a lot of time drilling and timing yourself, because down the road we'll expect you to be able to spell scales very, very quickly. This slide has a few don'ts. If you look at the top example, the scale has both flats and sharps. Major scales will never have both sharps and flats. In the second example, while this would sound like an A major scale if I played it on the piano, it's notated incorrectly because the D flat and D violate our once and only once mandate. There needs to be a C in here for this to be considered a proper scale. You should be able to build a major scale given any note in the scale as long as you know the pattern of whole and half steps. For instance, you might be asked to build a major scale in which G is Fa. Well, we know that Fa corresponds to scale degree 4, and so I'm going to write that in the middle of the line. Notice the little top hat here on the beginning of 4. That indicates that we're talking about scale degrees and not something else. It's essential that you include this caret when you're talking about scale degrees because there are a lot of numbers that we use in music theory and things can very quickly get confusing. I'll let it slide for the first couple of assignments, but after that I'll start to mark it wrong. So this is something you want to pay very close attention to. My next step is to fill in all of the notes above and below. If I count down 4 letters, I end up on D, and I'll need to go up 5 letters to get to D again. So we'll count on 1, 2, 3, 4, count on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way up here. Now I'm going to figure out the pattern of whole and half steps I have, and here again I've highlighted in red the ones that don't correspond to what I know about the major scale pattern. If I add an F sharp and a C sharp, that fixes my pattern of intervals. There's now a whole step from 2 to 3, there's a half step from 3 to 4, there's a whole step from 6 to 7, and a half step from 7 to the octave. I can now say that G is scale degree 4, or Fa, in the D major scale. Because of the pattern of half and whole steps, different scale degrees tend to have different melodic tendencies. Some notes have a strong attraction to other notes. The tonic is the most restful, and most notes really want to go to the tonic, and they like to fall to the tonic because gravity is very, very strong. Sometimes they'll go up to the tonic, but generally speaking, things go down to the tonic, and that's where we ultimately want to end up. 2 other very strong tendencies that you should be aware of is that Fa, scale degree 4, always wants to go to Mi. It's that half step attraction. They're very, very close together, and so whenever you have Fa, that has a very strong tendency to want to go to Mi. T also has a very, very strong tendency to want to go to Do, and we'll go through some of this in your 113 classes, and you'll hear how these tendency tones work and how they drive music forward. These in particular, Mi, Fa, and Ti, Do, are very important to keep in mind, especially when we get to harmonic progression near the end of the quarter. So by the end of this lesson now, you should be able to recall the pattern of whole and half steps that comprise a major scale. You should be able to identify scale degrees by number, solfege, and name. And you should be able to spell major scales starting on any pitch. Feel free to watch all or part of this video again. It's very important that you have this material down before you come to class, because we're going to do activities in class that deal with this. I would encourage you to work through practice exercises that are linked to on Canvas. You can post your questions to the discussion board. You can answer questions of your classmates, and the TAs and I will check in periodically. And remember to take the short quiz on Canvas before coming to class. You can take it as many times as you want, and you can use whatever materials you have, but you must score at least you must score 100% in order for it to count.